It's on behalf of GST committee in Court, uh, introducing Mr. Ankit Somani. Mr. Ankit Somani is a bank holder and chartered accountant, a company secretary. These are qualified professionals. He's currently regional council member and served as a treasurer of CIRC. He has been a part of various committees, be it indirect taxes, audit, accounting standard, digital accounting assurance board, and an internal audit. He's a practicing chartered accountant who has done an articleship from Deloitte. He has deliberated various sessions across India, over 1,000 sessions in national conference, seminars, webinars, etc. He runs a YouTube channel, Professional Adda. Today, he'll be enlightening us on the topic handling e-waybill, detention, and confiscation, a practical approach. He'll equip us with legal knowledge, practical strategies, and remedies to handle disputes. I hope addressing his session will enrich our knowledge on the topic. Over to you for the session. So we can start with the topic.
Yeah. A very good afternoon to all the participants. At the outset, I would like to convey my thanks and regards to GST and Indirect Tax Committee, especially Sir P. Rajendra Kumar sir and Umesh Sharma ji, for providing me this wonderful opportunity to interact with members about the very pertinent topic in relation to e-waybill, detention and confiscation. Now, as we all are aware that as far as detention and confiscation is considered, it is absolutely prevalent in all parts of India. So in this session, we would be discussing in detail about section 129 and 130 in detail. Also, along with that, we will discuss rule 138 and how and when GST e-waybill is to be made, correct? So basically, we all must be aware that GST e-waybill must be generated specifying the details of consignor, consignee, value of goods, nature of goods, taxable value, GST amount, invoice value, and this e-waybill must be prepared before starting the movement of goods. Whenever there is any kind of movement of goods, the most important thing for any sender is that the conveyance vehicle must carry, that the driver must carry with himself e-waybill, invoice, or delivery challan, as the case may be, and any document there is any, correct? There is one more point that in case where the part B of e-waybill is not being filled by yourself, then it has to be filled properly by transporter of the goods. Even in the case of job work, the e-waybill has to be made on the basis of whole value of goods and not only based upon the value of job work per se. In the case of bill to ship to transaction, where Mr. A is supplying the goods to Mr. B, but on the basis of advice of Mr. B, he is directly delivering the goods to Mr. C. Then in such a case, there is only one e-waybill needed. It is to be created in bill to ship to format. We all are aware of this. Another aspect which we are going to discuss in this in detail is that in the case of appeal, whenever there is an adverse order, in the case of detention and confiscation, and when the consignor or consignee does not make payment of the penalty per se, then they have to file an appeal. Now, in the case of filing of an appeal, presently section 107 subsection 6 deals with pre-deposit. Section 107 subsection 6 deals with pre-deposit element. The proviso of section 107 subsection 6 deals with cases whereby only penalty is being levied. Now, in such cases of e-waybill, where e-waybill was not proper, or there is no, there are no proper documents carried by the sender, then in such a case, penalty, 100% penalty is levied, and then for the purpose of filing appeal, 25% of the penalty amount is to be pre-deposited for the purpose of filing appeal. But a very special provision, a very special amendment was announced in this Finance Act 2025 that from now onwards, only 10% penalty, I repeat, only 10% of penalty amount is to be paid off before filing appeal. Correct? But yes, I agree that this particular part of amendment is yet not made applicable. It is yet not notified per se. But yes, in times to come, it will be a very positive move. Technically, there are three important terms. One is detention, one is confiscation, another is seizure. Let's understand each of them separately. I'm sharing my screen. I believe the participants are able to view this. Hello, is the screen visible? So basically, we were discussing about the three related terms. One is detention. Detention means keeping, holding back either by force or otherwise. Correct. Then another term is confiscation, and the third term is seizure. Confiscation means to appropriate to the government account, and seizure means to take forcible possession of. So all these three terms go hand in hand. But yes, there is a huge difference in all these terminologies. So it was better that we should have discussed all these. Now let's understand the law word by word, section by section, considering all the relevant amendments. And now what I'm presenting is the law which holds good as on date. Before that, one very important procedural compliance which is to be considered, which is to be viewed, which is to be seen, which is to be understood by every user and even by the officer. So many times we are, visualizing an aspect whereby Circular 41 oblique 15 oblique 2018 dated 13th of April 2018 is not being followed. The procedural compliance is not being followed. Whenever there is such a case, then definitely you have got a very good ground to litigate, because only compliance is to be done by the assessee. It is never with the case, right? Even assessing officers have to follow the procedural compliance per se. Let's proceed. Now, these are 11 forms, MOV1, MOV2, MOV till 11. Let's have a look one by one. MOV01, statement of owner, driver, or person in charge of the vehicle. Now, this MOV01 is very important, and whereby the officer clearly mentions when the driver or when the person in charge of the vehicle, what he is offering, yeah, what statement he is offering to the department. MOV02 refers to order for physical verification and inspection of goods, conveyance, or documents. MOV03 order for extension of time beyond 3 days of inspection. MOV04 physical verification report. MOV05 release order, whenever there is a case whereby the owner or the consignor or the consignee makes payment of the respective penalty amount. MOV06 order of detention. MOV07 notice specifying tax and penalty amount. Now this notice is very important. There can be seen that sometimes the notice is not being issued or the notice is not being issued for a particular standard limit. Correct? Then MOV08 bond for provisional release of goods or conveyance. It is a case specifically whereby the owner or the consignor or consignee are not willing to make payment of any penalty. Correct. In such a case, they can even furnish bond for provisional release of goods or release of conveyance per se. MOV09 order of demand of tax and penalty. MOV10 notice for confiscation of goods. MOV11 order of confiscation of goods and conveyance and demand of tax and penalty. Correct. So one very important practical aspect which I would like to refer here is that in majority of the cases, the dealing officer mainly creates a temporary ID in the name of driver. He is not creating any demand in your existing GSTI. Correct. So what he is trying to do, he will always try to create a new demand in a temporary ID. See, what is the purpose of this and why I am referring you this? Correct. Suppose if the assessing authority, or rather the person dealing, the authority dealing at the time of interception, correct? So in case he issues notices or in case he passes order in your normal GST IDN, in such a case, you can always, make further payments. In case there is any tax payment, then you can always use your ITC element. Now, in case of any further appeals and any further, procedures, then you can always use your original GST ID also. But normally, the officers uh, uh, all this exercise in the name of driver so as to create a temporary ID. So that is very difficult aspect. I would advise all the listeners that in such a case, it will be advisable that at the first point itself, make a written application to the officer present there that please perform any of the procedural activities in our original GST. This is only a request which can be done from your side. It is absolutely the prerogative of the officer there, and he has to decide by himself whether he is to create the case in your original GSTIN or he has to create the case in temporary ID created by in the name of driver. I'll proceed further. Section 129 deals with detention, seizure, and release of goods and conveyances in transit. Let's have a look this in detail. Subsection 1, notwithstanding anything contained in this act, where any person transports any goods or stores any goods while they are in transit. Now, I have highlighted the word in transit, this phrase in transit, this is very important. We will discuss this in detail later on. While they are in transit, in contravention of the provisions of this act or the rules made thereunder, all such goods and conveyance used as a means of transport for carrying the said goods and documents relating to such goods and conveyance shall be liable to detention or seizure, and after detention or seizure shall be released. See, whenever there is a case whereby any person who transports and while the goods are in transit, now such transportation has been done in contravention, then even the goods as well as conveyance along with documents shall be liable to detention. Correct. Now, point A, how it will be released? Clause A, on payment of penalty equal to 200%. I repeat, 200% of the tax payable on such goods. 200% of the tax payable on such goods. Now, this is the case where the owner of the goods comes forward for payment of such penalty. So, such goods as well as conveyance as well as documents will be released whenever the owner makes payment of penalty equal to 200% of tax. This provision has been changed also. I'm iterating here that these are already the revised provisions. So penalty equal to 200% of tax payable on such goods. And in the case of exempted goods, on payment of amount equal to 2% of the value of goods, 2% of the value of goods, or rupees 25,000, whichever is low. Now, this is the case where the owner comes forward for payment of such penalty. This we have already discussed. But in case where the owner does not come forward for payment of such penalty, then what is the penalty for which notice and ultimately order can be passed? On payment of penalty equal to 50% of the value of goods. Please read very carefully that in clause A, it was penalty equal to 200% of tax portion. Whereas in clause B, it is penalty equal to 50% of the value of goods or the value of goods or the 200% of tax payable on such goods, whichever is higher. I repeat, whichever is higher, 50% of the value of goods or 200% of the tax payable on such goods, whichever is higher. Now, let us assume that the taxable value whereby the proper documents were not being there, the taxable value amounted to rupees 1 and the GST rate was 18%. Now, in case of clause A, then the person has to make payment of penalty equal to 200% of tax. Now, in case where the taxable value is rupees 1 lakh, the GST portion or the tax amount is rupees 18,000. Now, in case of penalty equal to 200% of tax, the penalty amounts to rupees 36,000. Correct. Whereas in clause B, on payment of penalty equal to 50% of the value of goods, this means 50,000 rupees or 36,000 rupees, whichever is higher, meaning thereby in clause B, he has to make payment of rupees 50,000 penalty. Correct. Now, suppose if Suppose if the GST rate is 28%, then definitely the 200% of the tax payable amount will come to a higher amount exceeding 50% of the value of goods. I think this is very much easier. And in the case of exempted goods, on payment of an amount equal to 5% of the value of goods or rupees 25,000, whichever is low. Correct. Now, the major difference between clause A and clause B is that under clause A, the owner comes forward for making payment of such penalty, whereby under clause B, the owner does not come forward for payment of such penalty. The owner might be there or the owner might be in constant touch, but the major point is whether he is willing, whether he is ready, whether he comes forward for settling the whole case by making payment of such penalty. There is one more clause to this. The goods can even be released upon furnishing of a security equal to the amount payable under clause A or clause B in such form and manner as may be prescribed. Now, for such form and manner, we have to consider the respective rules per se. Very important provision provided that no such goods or conveyance shall be detained or seized without serving an order of detention or seizure on the person transporting the goods. Now, there have been several cases in past whereby the goods or the conveyance vehicle have been detained without serving an order. Now, what is happening is one more important point I should consider here itself. Whenever the person making the payment or the owner making the payment comes forward and he makes the payment, then the whole case is considered to be solved. The whole case considered to be resolved per se, and no order is even passed. Now, what if in case where the owner makes payment of the tax, but he has made payment, not the tax, made payment of the penalty, and he has made payment of the penalty under with a view that he is going to fight the case to a higher level or he is going to the appellate authority per se. Correct. Now, in such a case, he must clearly mention that this payment of penalty is absolutely for the purpose of peace of mind and absolutely for the purpose of only immediate release of goods and immediate release of the conveyance. He is not under an intention to settle the case there and there itself. Subsection 3 clearly states that the proper officer detaining or seizing goods or conveyance shall issue a notice within 7 days of such detention or seizure. Again, the time limit has been reduced, specifying the penalty payable and thereafter pass an order within 7 days from the date of service of such notice. So basically, very harsh time deadlines are there in this. Subsection 4, no penalty shall be determined under subsection 3 without giving the person concerned an opportunity of being heard. Now, there have been many cases whereby only 3 days have been given. Only 3 days have been given from the date of issue of notice, and within only 3 days, order has been passed. Such passing of order is absolutely violation of principle of natural justice. And whenever you go, or you take the matter under appellate authority, you are definitely going to get the relief in such cases. Subsection 5, on payment of the amount referred in subsection 1, all proceedings in respect to the notice specified in subsection 3 shall be deemed to have been concluded. So this was what we were discussing, that in such cases, he must, or the owner must clearly mention that he has made the payment only for the immediate release of the goods or immediate release of the conveyance. And he is definitely going to take the case further under appellate authority. Subsection 6, where the person transporting any goods or the owners of goods fails to pay the amount of penalty under subsection 1 within 15 days from the date of receipt of copy of the order passed under subsection 3, the goods or conveyance or detained or seized shall be liable to be sold or disposed of or otherwise in such manner within such time as may prescribe to recover the penalty payable, provided the conveyance shall be released on payments by the transporter of penalty under subsection 3 or 1 lakh rupees, whichever is less. Now, there can be a case whereby the transporter is carrying goods of 3-4 persons. Then in such a case, only by virtue of that one EV bill or one consignment was not having proper documents, not only EV bill, but even other documents such as proper invoice, correct, or proper document in relation to delivery challan. Suppose if those documents are not there, and if the owner of the goods is not paying any heed or not paying any attention to proper reminders made by the transporter, and the transporter wants his conveyance very fast, then on the payment of rupees 1 lakh rupees or the amount of penalty as prescribed under subsection 1, whichever is less, the goods or the conveyance can be easily released. Provided further that where the detained or seized goods are perishable or hazardous in nature or are likely to depreciate in value with passage of time, the set period of 15 days may be reduced by the promise of. Now, all these cases are normally applicable whenever it is a case of, transportation of highly perishable goods. Let us assume that even in the case of transportation of exempted goods, then such case is possible. This is a very important relaxation, that minor mistakes in e-way bill is to be ignored, and huge penalty. I am referring it again and again. Huge penalty is not going to be charged, is not going to be levied. Now, such relaxation was being ordered or was being referred in Circular 64/38/2018. Such circular is highly relevant in present context also. This circular was being issued in September 2018. Let's have a look. Relaxation in inspection and detention procedure. Circular 64/38/2018, dated 14th of September 2018, gives a minor relaxation to the persons who made minor clerical errors. Practically, what we are visualizing is that even if there are only minor clerical errors, the dealing officer, which is at the checkpost, is not going to, is not going to reduce the penalty amount, but normally he tries to create a case. It is your duty as a chartered accountant to remind him of the importance of Circular 64/30/2018, so that the minor errors in e-way bill shall not create any proceedings under 129. Let us assume spelling mistakes in the name of consignor or consignee, but the GSTN is correct. Error in PIN code, but the address of consignor or consignee is correct, subject to the condition that the error in PIN code shall not have the effect of increasing the validity period of e-way bill. Now, this is very important, correct? So, in case the PIN code is written in such a way that the time period, the validity period of the e-way bill is increased. Normally, for every 100 kilometers, there is one additional day. Now, in case, because the number of kilometers are being assumed or are being taken in e-way bill with the help of PIN code only. Point C, there is error in the address of consignee to the effect that the locality and other details of the consignee are correct. Meaning thereby there is minor defect in the proper address. See, many times what we see, what we visualize is that the dealing officer or the intercepting officer immediately checks on his portal, immediately checks on the GST portal that what is the registered address of the consignee. And in case the address of the consignee is not matching with e-way bill, or it is not matching with the address mentioned in invoice, and there is very low amount of error, such that the locality and other details of the consignee are correct, then even in such a case, Circular 64, the benefit under Circular 64/38/2018 can be taken. Error in 1 or 2 digits of the document number mentioned in e-way bill. See, read very carefully. This is very common mistake, that the invoice number mentioned or the delivery challan number mentioned in the e-way bill was not proper. Then again, in such a case, Circular 64 will come into picture and Section 129 cannot be raised. Error in 4 or 6 digit level of HSN, where the first 2 digits of HSN are correct and the rate of tax mentioned is correct. So basically, all these points hint at some very important aspect, that there was no mollified intention of tax evasion. Correct. Error in 1 or 2 digits or characters of vehicle number. So these are very important mistakes. Particularly, these mistakes can happen with every other person. These are basically inadvertent in nature. They were never ever intended also. Absolutely clerical errors. There is penalty of only 1,000 rupees, 500 plus 500 under section 125 in form GST DRC 07 for every consign. You know, out of huge penalty of 50% of the value of amount of tax, or 50% of sometimes 200 of the tax amount, 50% of the value of goods, whichever is higher, all those cases. Instead of that, penalty of rupees only 1,000 would be levied in all these cases. And proceeding further, section 130, let's have a look in detail for section 130, confiscation of goods or conveyances and levy of penalty. Where any person, read very carefully, where any person supplies or receives any good in contravention of any of the provisions of this act or the rules made thereunder with intent to evade payment of tax. Now, this phrase is very important. Intent to evade payment of tax. Now, how this is going to be proved? For the purpose of invoking section 130 clause, subsection 1 clause first, this intention to evade payment of tax is very important. Or where any person does not account for any goods on which he is liable to pay tax under this act, or where any person supplies any goods liable to tax under this act without having applied for registration, whereby registration under section 24 was mandatory, or he should have applied for registration by virtue of section 22 to 24, whereas he has not taken any registration. Then again, where any person contravenes any of the provisions of this act or the rules made thereunder with intent to evade payment of tax. Now, this clause fourth is very, is very open in nature. Contravenes any of the provisions of this act or rules made thereunder. Clause 5, where any person uses any conveyance as a means of transport for carriage of goods in contravention of the provisions of this act or rules made thereunder, unless the owner of the conveyance proved that it was so used without the knowledge or connivance of the owner himself, his agent, if any, and the person in charge of the conveyance. Then such goods or conveyance shall be liable to confiscation, and the person shall be liable to penalty under section 120. Subsection 2 deals with a case where whenever confiscation of any goods or conveyance is authorized by this act, the officer adjudicating it shall give to the owner of the goods an option to pay in lieu of confiscation such fine as the said officer thinks fit. Such fine leviable shall not exceed the market value of the goods confiscated up to 100% of the value, less the tax chargeable thereon. Provided further that the aggregate of such fine and penalty leviable shall not be less than the penalty equal to 100% of the tax payable on such goods. Provided also where any such conveyance is used for the carriage of the goods or passengers for hire, the owner of the conveyance shall be given an option to pay in lieu of the confiscation of the conveyance a fine equal to tax payable on the goods being transported there. So this is very clear. Be it section 129 or be it section 130, the government is giving very clear ideology or very clear picture that the fines or the penalties are very high. Why? Why? Because they want to stop any kind of probable evasion also. But in such a case, that even the curable errors, I would say curable errors only, or even the inadvertent errors are being penalized to a great amount. See, whenever any person does any work, the small or the clerical errors are always inevitable. But the law is framed in such a direction or such an intent, or the words are being referred so much so harsh that the officer who is dealing with such goods at the intercepting point is not in a position to give any relief. I'll proceed further. Subsection 3 is being omitted. Subsection 4, no order for confiscation of goods or conveyance or for imposition of penalty shall be issued without giving the person an opportunity of being heard. Now, likewise, I previously referred also, whenever there is a case whereby order is being passed without giving any reasonable opportunity of being heard, then in such a case, such order cannot sustain. Such order is absolutely in violation of principle of natural justice. Subsection 5, where any goods or conveyance are confiscated under this act, the title of such goods or conveyance shall thereupon vest in the government. Subsection 6, the proper officer executing confiscation shall take and hold possession of the things confiscated, and every officer of police on the requisition of such proper officer shall assist him in taking and holding such possession. Subsection 7, the proper officer may, after satisfying himself that the confiscated goods or conveyance are not required in any other proceedings under this act, and after giving reasonable time, not exceeding 3 months, to pay fine in lieu of confiscation, dispose of such goods and conveyances and deposit the sale proceeds thereof with the government. See, now all these provisions whereby such powers are being given to the authority to sell off the goods, normally such powers are being used or implemented whenever it is a case whereby the owner is not ready at all to make payment of any penalty, or he has not filed any appeal against the order passed, or he is not he is not taking any heed or not paying any attention for deposit of the dues. Now let's understand some important cases under which some benefit can be availed by the taxpayer, or some cases whereby it resolves each and every condition. We have already considered one important fact, that whenever adverse order is passed, then the person, then the owner or the taxpayer, if it wants to file for appeal, then some pre-deposit must be there, correct? Now, section 107 deals with filing of the appeal. And as far as pre-deposit is to be considered, section 107 subsection 6 deals with it. And the provision to section 107 subsection 6 of CGST Act, it is very clear that 25% of the penalty amount, I repeat,
Hello?
percent of the penalty amount. Hello? Hello, am I audible? Shall I proceed further? Okay. So, what I was referring was, for the purpose of filing appeal, 25% of the penalty amount must be paid off as a, or must be deposited as a pre-deposit for the purpose of filing appeal. But in Finance Act 2025, this 25% has been reduced to 10%. This is definitely a welcome move. But this 10%, this amendment 10% is yet not notified. Correct? Secondly, one very important aspect we have already considered, we have already discussed, that whenever the goods are being, or the conveyance is being intercepted, the first step what you should do as a taxpayer, or what you should suggest as a chartered accountant, as a consultant to your client, is that please give a written application to proceed, or to make any further proceedings under the normal GSTN ID. And please don't create any temporary GST registration under the name of driver. Correct? I am proceeding further. Non-updation of vehicle number in e-way bill is not a mere technical defect, and therefore it can be a ground of detention. This is an adverse order, Kerala Granites 2018 order, Kerala High Court judgment. Correct. So basically, initially all the judgments, all the important judgments were of Kerala High Court, but later on some other important judgments are also there. So Honorable Kerala High Court stated that as the e-way bill has been made a mandatory document with effect from 1st April 2018 itself, the petitioner cannot be heard to contend that a minor defect in the mandatory document cannot be a ground for detention. Meaning thereby, in case the vehicle number in e-way bill is not updated in Part D, then in such a case, it can be always considered as a ground for detention. Kerala High Court directed to release the goods and the vehicle to the petitioner on the petitioner furnishing a bank guarantee for the security amount demanded in the detention notice. Second important case, goods can be detained only if there is an intention to evade tax. Now, in cases of every kind of detention or every kind of confiscation, you can always refer to this landmark judgment again of Honorable Kerala High Court, Indus Towers Limited versus Assistant State Tax Officer 018 1 PMI 1313. It's a citation. The order was passed on 17th of January 2018. Merely non-furnishing of e-way bill is not sufficient to invite detention. Now, this gives a very important and relevant discussion that whether e-way bill is particularly required or not. See, as per Rule 138, e-way bill is a mandatory law. And whenever there is a case whereby any conveyance was found without e-way bill and without any other relevant document, then such vehicle, such conveyance, and along with goods thereon can be easily, considered for the purpose of detention. But yes, this promising case law clearly states that goods can be detained only if there is an intention to evade tax. This particular case is very useful for all kinds of detention. Honorable High Court held that Section 129 talks about detention of goods only when the movement is under suspicion. Now, how and when movement is to be considered under suspicion is absolutely a call of officer. You can always contend, but the officer in charge there who is intercepting the vehicle is not going to understand this case. But yes, this is a very important judgment whenever you are referring the case to appellate authority. Moreover, Section 130 provides that confiscation of goods is contemplated under the statutes only when a taxable supply is made against the provisions contained in statutes with an intent to evade payment of tax. This is again very important one. Basically, in case we are of the view that whereby only taxable goods are being traveling, whereby only taxable goods are being transported, only then penalty can be levied. No, sir, it is not the case. Any procedural lapse with GST rule does not amount to taxable supply, and as such cannot result in detention of goods. However, it may result in imposition of penalty. Accordingly, the order levying tax and penalty were quashed, and the respondent department was directed to release the goods. Later on, even the act has been changed. Section 129, Section 130 has been changed, and now only penalty is being levied. Goods can be detained only if there is an intention to evade tax. Again, further, the above decision Indus Tower is followed in the case of Ravi Parmeshwaran Pillai, 2018 judgment, again Kerala High Court, who held that detention of goods merely for infraction of procedural rules in transactions which do not amount to taxable supply is without restriction. It was, however, made clear that this judgment will not preclude the authorities under the CGST Act and the Kerala State GST Act from imposing penalty on the petitioner for violation of the rules, if any, made under the said statutes. So, meaning thereby, only the tax portion is to be avoided. And later on, as I already mentioned, Section 129, Section 130 has been amended, and now no tax is being levied. Mere non-generation of Part B of e-way bill cannot be a ground for interception. Again, a very promising judgment, very relevant for even today's context. See, this happens many times whereby you send your goods to, go down of transporter, whereby he keeps all the goods. And whenever his conveyance is full from all the goods of other suppliers also, then he releases his conveyance. And later on, I repeat, and then later on, suppose if he forgets to generate Part B or update Part B, then particularly this cannot be a sole ground for interception. So this is very promising and important judgment, positive judgment. VSL Alloys India Private Limited, 2018, Allahabad High Court. The Honorable High Court of Allahabad held that we find no ill intention at the hands of petitioner, nor the petitioner was supposed to fill a Part B, giving all the details, including the vehicle number, before the goods are loaded in a vehicle. So again, this very important judgment, very promising judgment, whereby the transporter has not, exonerated from his liability of generating part B. Because definitely this cannot be regarded as a fault of original supplier. This cannot be regarded as a fault of consignor, neither the consignor. Merely non-mentioning of the vehicle number in part B cannot be a ground for seizure of the goods. Some important points. Penalty under section 129 is a penalty in action. Penalty cannot be imposed after completion of movement in case goods are not intercepted during movement and found to be deficient on the prescribed documents. Correct. So this was what I was referring, that whenever you are considering section 129, it clearly mentions the word in transit. It clearly reflects the phrase in transit. So penalty under section 129 can be levied if and only if the conveyance is in transit. Suppose if the movement is complete, and even if the movement was done on the basis of some deficient documents, later on penalty under section 129 cannot be levied. It cannot be imposed. If subsequent evidence is collected that clearly proves that the goods have been moved without issuing e-way bill, even then penalty under section 129 cannot be imposed if such investigation is conducted after movement has ended. Now, in this case, there's an Patna High Court in the case of Ram Charitar Ram Hari Prasad versus State of Bihar, where the High Court held that if e-way bill generated had expired, but another e-way bill was generated just before the vehicle was intercepted, which was produced to the inspecting officer, High Court held that the intercepting officer cannot be questioned if a valid e-way bill was produced, even though from the facts that the vehicle can be understood to have traveled without a valid e-way bill, but not intercepted. So basically, such penalty under section 129 can be levied only when the goods is under movement. Offense cannot be construed in theory. It has to be in action. Penalty can only be levied when the goods or when the conveyance is in transit. Penalty under section 129 will arise only when the offense is in progress. If the goods or the conveyance have reached the relevant location, then penalty under section 119 cannot be levied, especially with effect from 1st of Jan 2022. The time period to issue notice and passing of orders stretching the penalty has been clarified. The notice should be issued within 7 days of such detention or seizure, and thereafter an order should be passed within 7 days of the service of such notice. So we have already discussed all such provisions. Plus, there is some important other aspects also. Let's understand, or let's have a look at each of them. Let's have a look at some important case laws also, one by one. Now, we have already discussed about Circular 64. That is very, very, very relevant. You can even, note down one important judgment of Honorable MP High Court in case of Daya Shankar Singh versus State of Madhya Pradesh. The judgment is of 2022. This was a case when, the e-way bill was expired. The e-way bill got expired, and it got expired in midnight. The goods were delivered early morning. So this MP High Court clearly stated that a mere delay of some specified hours, very, very, very low hours, particularly in this case, it was a case of, delay of only 4.5 hours, appear to be bona fide. And there is no possibility of fraudulent intent or gross negligence of part of petitioner. And hence, punishment under section 129 cannot be imposed. We can even refer for judgment of Gujarat High Court in Shri Govind Alois. You can also note down this citation. Shri Govind Alois versus State of Gujarat, 2023, 148 Taxman 382. Expiry of EA bill 41 hours before due to truck having remained in non-motorable conditions. This was a case whereby the conveyance was halted. Conveyance got halted when it was a case of non-motorable condition for conveyance. The goods were seized without there being any allegations of evasion of tax. So again, the judgment was passed in favor of assessee that no, any kind of penalty under section 129 cannot be levied. It cannot be levied because there was no mollified intention per se. Correct. You can even note down one again promising judgment of Allahabad High Court, PI Agro Oils Limited. Correct. Seizure and penalty order was passed on the ground that documents do not relate to goods intercepted. What I mean to refer is that the documents referred to some other goods, whereas the e-way bill referred to some other documents. In such a case, the petitioner contended that the goods were damaged and brought back and thereafter properly packed and supplied through same invoice and e-way bill. And hence, the Allahabad High Court clearly gave a very important judgment that seizing authority has to establish by evidence that e-way bill was being reused, but there was no evidence produced by such authority, and hence impugned order was being set aside. Then further, you can even you can even note down important judgment of Calcutta High Court, Karan Singh versus State of West Bengal. Now, what happened was the vehicle carrying goods had clutch plate problem and was sent for servicing. What I mean to say hereby is that the conveyance got damaged during the way. It was again under non-motorable condition. The e-way bill rating to consignment was expired in midnight, and hence the new e-way bill could not be made, and the goods were detained early next morning on the ground of expiry of e-way bill. Again, the same important judgment, MP High Court judgment was being referred here, which gave a positive judgment even in Calcutta High Court, and Karan Singh versus State of West Bengal. Then you can again refer to, or you can again note down important judgment of Gujarat High Court, Synergy Fertichem Private Limited. Synergy Fertichem Private Limited versus State of Gujarat, whereby the Gujarat High Court held that where competent authority detained goods of assessee in transit and vehicle on the ground that goods were not accompanied by e-way bill, said authority was to be directed to release goods forthwith, as tax was already being paid at the time of import only. All these relevant cases can also be considered. As far as I can remember, even you can refer this important judgment of Chhattisgarh High Court. Chhattisgarh High Court under the case of KP Sugandh Limited. So, the courts in this case were of the opinion that undervaluation of goods in the invoice cannot be a ground for detention of goods and vehicle for a proceeding to be drawn under section 129. See, what is happening is sometimes the officers make a false case. I would take the liberty of calling it a false case, whereby they just want to challenge the case and they just want to challenge the valuation as referred in invoice. Now, in this judgment, the order passed under section 129 demanding tax and penalty were not sustainable. Why? Because the case under section 129 can never be created for undervaluation. But yes, the officer could have created the case under section 130. But again, if the proper procedures were not being followed, if the proper section is not being used, then definitely the assessing authority or the revenue department is not going to be irritated in this case. See further. So penalty should be levied. So already consider penalty should be levied only if intent to evade tax is there. Practically no penalty can be levied if there is lack of any intent to evade tax, especially when there are only technical violations in the requirement while transporting goods, meaning thereby only part B was not filled, or there were some small clerical errors. Likewise, vehicle number was not being entered correctly, 1 or 2 digits, or even some document number was not entered correctly, 1 or 2 digits, or in case, the PIN code was not entered correctly. But this comes with a rider that such incorrect PIN code is not increasing the time limit of EV. Not only that, this incorrect PIN code is again coming with an additional rider that the otherwise the whole address mentioned in EV bill and even the supplies and even the invoice for outward supply is correct. The whole address of the consignee is absolutely correct. Many high courts have given molded relief to petitioners who approach the court citing lack of intent to evade tax in the consignment, which is now being penalized under Section 120. So basically, high courts have given positive judgments on this. The provisions, although the provisions do not, however, require the authorities to establish any mens rea. See, Section 129 never deals with a situation, never considers any situation, or never involves any issue whereby mens rea is to be established in advance before leaving any kind of penalty. No, this is not such a case. Then how can high courts give positive judgments? So basically, in this context, you can even refer to 3 important judgments. See, Supreme Court judgment in the case of Saw Pipes Limited, and again, Shri Ram Mutual Funds and another. Correct. These 2 important judgments are of Supreme Court, and then Honorable Calcutta High Court judgment in Asian Switch Care, MAT number 32 of 2023, held that absence of requirements of mens rea cannot be equated with an automatic imposition of penalty either. Now, what is happening is that in case the section does not refer to an important protective covenant of mens rea, this cannot be a ground. This cannot be a ground of simply imposing a penalty. That clearly Section 129 never hinted or never included any requirement of mens rea, and hence penalty is to be imposed. No, sir, it is not. It is not to be levied in such cases. But yes, the officer who is intercepting the vehicle must clearly, identify whether there was an intention to evade the tax. Now, in cases where there was no such intention to evade the tax, then in my personal opinion, I humbly submit with that there should not be any case created, or there should not be any adverse orders passed under Section 129 per se. Moreover, further, if we discuss some important judgments also in this respect, then you can always refer to important judgment of Satyam Shivam Papers Private Limited. This is again a case of this case was adjudged by Supreme Court. Now, what is happening is that in such a case, there was no intention to evade the tax. Moreover, there was no fault also. Now, in such what happened in such a case that goods were kept in house of a relative for 16 days by officer and not in designated place for safekeeping. So basically, what happened that when the proper officer or the officer who is intercepting the vehicle, he kept the goods in the house of his relative only and not deposited the goods under the surveillance or under the custody of department. High Court set aside the order which levied the tax and penalty, and moreover, it even impose cost of rupees 10,000 on the concerned officer. So this is the again very promising judgment whereby proper procedures were not being followed by the officers, and hence the order for uh, levying tax and penalty was set aside. High Court intervened in this order and clearly mentioned that the interpretation or the inference of the officer that the that the assessee was attempting to evade tax is absolutely out of his own preconceived notion. This was absolutely baseless per se, and hence even Supreme Court referred that the intention of keeping goods in private place was absolutely questionable. Supreme Court upheld the decision of High Court, upheld the decision of High Court and found that there was no fault and there was no intention only to evade tax. Again, further, you can even refer to Allahabad High Court judgment, promising judgment of Varun Beverages. Wrong vehicle number was mentioned in e-way bill. Now, mentioning of wrong vehicle number in e-way bill is absolutely out of human error. This can be always considered as inadvertent error. Moreover, this never involved any kind of evasion of tax also. So this was easily covered under all the proper that all the other documents were proper, and even delivery challan was there. They were only transferring goods within the same state. No evidence was placed by department to prove that there was any intention on the part of dealer to evade tax. Moreover, even the discrepancy in the e-way bill was very minor. So this we have already discussed that even the circular 64/30/2018 is to be properly applied by the officers person. You can even refer to, or you can even note down important judgment of Gujarat High Court in Orson Holdings Company Limited versus Union of India. Again, very recent judgment of 2023. E-way bill expired 48 hours prior to detention of goods. Now, what was happening was that ultimately High Court gave the positive judgment again on the view that there was no ill or mollified intention on the part of petitioner to use expired e-way bill, and hence the impugned order was quashed. Moreover, so much so that even the penalty recovered from the petitioner was to be refunded along with interest. Correct. See, what happens is whenever you have to get your goods or conveyance released, you have to immediately make payment of the penalty. Now, in such cases, further, whenever you are making payment of any penalty, the goods are or the case is supposed to be closed. Now, how you have to file appeal further? That is very important. Correct. So, in such a case, that you have to whereby you are interested in filing the appeal further, you have to file for the refund of the penalty what you have paid via DRC 03. And whenever such refund is being rejected, only then you can make further appeal against such amount filed, originally paid off by you. Correct? Then again, promising judgments, positive judgments are being passed, whereby the order was not within a specified time limit. You can note down again important judgment of Madras High Court, Deepam Roadways. Now, in this case, the order of detention and the demand of penalty was not sustainable. Why? Because the same was not passed within 7 days from the date of issuance of notice. Correct? Department had issued notice within 7 days from the date of detention, but had failed to pass an order within 7 days. So this is again very important. In such a case, again, the impugned order passed under section 129 was being quashed. important judgment of Madras High Court, Deepam Road case. Then you can even refer positive judgment of Kerala High Court, MR Traders versus Assistant State Tax Officer. See, basically, in this case, the goods were in transit from head office to branch office, and moreover, even the vehicle number, uh, even the address mentioned, address mentioned in the invoice was different from the address mentioned in e-way. So technically, there were too many issues, but later on, the assessee, clarified while filing rent whether competent authority was to be directed in release of goods furnishing bank guarantee for amounts on notice. Yes, definitely. In case where the goods have been transported and held in abeyance, then in case whenever the assessee furnishes bank guarantee, then the goods and even the conveyance has to be released. We have already considered the cases like where the proper reasonable opportunity of being heard was not given. Basically, violation of principle of natural justice. You can note down the judgment also, Allahabad High Court, Premium Traders versus State of UP. So this was again very promising judgment whereby shorter notice was being given, and just for the purpose of creating huge demand, early orders were being made. Again, this is a case whereby uh, the order under section 129 was being quashed. Premium Traders versus State of UP. So these were the important judgments also, whereby uh, the intention to make taxes were very relevant, were very important. In case of any absence of such intention, then penalty cannot be levied. Let us discuss any question and answers in case of posted by the members. Then we'll discuss again the MOV part. Just a minute. Can somebody please help? Are there any questions? Any chat box? Hello. Any questions? Yeah, please. Are there any questions?
Yes, sir. Bhargav, sir is asking for something. So that link, the admin link, you need to log in.
Just a minute. Yeah, fine.
I hope you've logged in.
Just a minute. Yeah, some questions are there. So we'll discuss the questions one by one. And then again, we'll move towards MOV 0. Let's have a look. So Deepak ji has raised a question. Ram of Ghaziabad, UP, purchases goods from ABC Limited of Delhi. Ram sell these goods directly to K Limited of Faridabad. Ram is in Ghaziabad, UP. He purchased goods from Delhi. Ram sell these goods directly to K Limited of Faridabad, Haryana, from the place of ABC of Delhi. So Ram of UP take delivery of these goods in his own tempo from the office of ABC Limited, and from there delivered these goods to K Limited of Faridabad. How EV bill is to be generated? So at least EV bill, how EV bill is to be generated, sir? He can generate the EV bill mentioning the vehicle number of his own auto only, regardless of the fact whether there is any transporter involved or not. But he has to prepare the EV bill using the details of his own tempo from his office, from the office of ABC Limited. The second, what the issue is. Okay. Second, Mr. A. If there is wrong invoice, can department seize the vehicle for detention and will release after payment of penalty under protest? Definitely, sir. Department can definitely seize the vehicle also. They can even seize the goods also, and the vehicle will be released only after the payment of penalty under protest. Correct. So what is happening is that in case the owner does not want to, or he does not come forward for making payment of any penalty, then the transporter himself can make payment of penalty specified under section 129 subsection 1 clause A or clause B, or rupees 1 lakh. Correct. This we have already discussed. Mr. Rahul Bothra from Chennai. Query in bill to ship to in case of e-way bill generation. If we generate e-way bill under option bill to ship to say A to B, she is not complete. Rahulji, can you please repose the query? Mr. Sandeep from Chennai, why are vehicles seized when even invoices are there, and when can it be released? Only after payment of penalty. Sir, because since proper e-way bill was not there, which is present under Rule 138, or proper documents were not there, and just to ensure that there were no chances of any kind of evasion of tax. See, you please understand a scenario whereby the supplier transports goods again and again without creation of any e-way bill on same invoice, then definitely there would be revenue loss for department. So such kinds of provisions are there to even detain the vehicles per se. We have already considered, we have already discussed a solution whereby the even the transporter can make payment of the dues and hence get the vehicle released. Correct. Again, same query. We have already discussed. Okay, I'll once again discuss this. See, section 129, subsection 6 clearly details a case whereby the owner does not come forward to make payment of the penalty. And moreover, he fails to make the payment of penalty within 15 days from the date of order also. Then in such a case, even the goods or conveyance detained are liable to be sold off. Moreover, in case the transporter is in a hurry, then he can get his conveyance released on payment of penalty, which is prescribed under subsection 3, or rupees 1 lakh, whichever is less. So basically, ultimately, he has to make payment of rupees 1 lakh for getting his conveyance vehicle released. Next query by Pratik Jain from Kolkata. Under which section or rule does the officer have power to make the detention or demand in a temporary ID and not by GSTN? And on what basis he is going to decide? Okay. See, basically, there is no proper procedure specified for the same. But yes, it would be best if you can give a written submission to please create the case under the same GST and IN of supplier itself, and don't create the case or issue notices or issue order under the temporary ID created in the name of driver person. Because see, this normally this request is entertained by the officer whosoever is stopping the vehicle, stopping the conveyance. Sir, NL Suman from NL. Sir, this query is regarding the pre-deposit requirement. You mentioned at the outset pre-deposit under section 1076, 25%. Now 10% of penalty amount not admitted is to be remitted. Is this not applicable to section 129 1C case only? That is furnishing bond and releasing vehicle? No, sir. No, sir, no, sir. See, at least whenever there is a case of penalty, then definitely 25%, later on it will become 10%, is to be pre-deposit. Next question. Can a registered person from one state go to another state? Okay, purchase taxable goods from unregistered suppliers without a tax invoice and bring it to his home state for further supply under a delivery challan, Rule 55(1)(c), perfectly correct, along with e-way bill generated by himself. Definitely he can do the same. See, primarily the generation of e-way bill is to be done. The primary responsibility is of consignee. Next responsibility is of consignee, and the third responsibility lies on transporter person. Correct. So in this case, when the consignor was unregistered, then definitely the next responsibility boils down to consignee. And in this case, the consignee himself is procuring goods from outside state, and he himself is getting the goods on the basis of delivery challan from other state. Definitely he can do the same. Can the vehicle be detained under section 129 for violation of any of the provisions of the act? No, sir. To my understanding, definitely the vehicle cannot be detained under section 129. There has not been any kind of violation of any provisions of the act or even rules. Because even for the purpose of rule 138, the second primary responsibility after consignor boils down to consignor. Next question again from NW. When the conveyance is detained in transit in a state where the owner of the goods is not having registration. Now this is difficult. This is very relevant also. This is practically happening also. This is difficult for the person who is going to file the appeal for this case, right? So I'll once again read. Where the conveyance is detained in transit in a state where the owner of the goods is not having registration, remitted the penalty under DRC 03 and release vehicle. Where can the appeal be filed? Whether at the state where the detention took place, perfectly correct, sir, or in the state where the owner is registered. No, sir, he has to file the appeal in the state where the detention took place. And when you will have a look at the order, even the order per se would be to deposit the penalty, and even the exchequer has transferred the amount to the state where the detention has taken place. Shivish from Jalgaon, if customer purchase goods taxable and non-taxable of rupees 2 lakhs over the counter of rupees 2 lakhs, okay, and he will arrange transportation, then e-way bill generation is required for seller. If goods are non-taxable, then answer will change. Sale is intra-state in Maharashtra. Okay, so I am understanding a scenario whereby if you have mentioned a limit of rupees 2 lakh, then I am assuming that in Maharashtra, the limit of the quantifying limit for creation of e-way bill is rupees 2 lakh. Now, for the purpose of the benefit of all the users, I would like to state this limit changes from state to state. Like, say, for example, in MP, if you make transportation of goods within MP, then there is no need of any e-way bill. In the case of intra-state movement, there is no need of any e-way bill. Correct? Regardless of amount. In the case of Rajasthan, the limit is of 2 lakh rupees. Sorry, the limit is of 1 lakh rupees if the transportation is intra-state. And if the transportation is to be done intra-city, where PIN code is not getting changed, major PIN code is not getting changed, then the limit is of 2 lakh rupees. The limits of rupees 2 lakhs or rupees 1 lakh, these limits are in reference to invoice value, not taxable value. Please remember this. The invoice value is to be considered for the purpose of identifying this limit. Correct? So I'll once again go through the question for the benefit of all. If the customer purchase goods taxable and non-taxable combined of rupees 2 lakhs over the counter, and he will arrange transportation by himself. Customer will arrange transportation by himself. Right? Then e-way generation, whether is it mandatory for seller? To my understanding, it is definitely not mandatory for the seller, but ideally it will be advantageous for the supplier that he should, ask for a written documentation from the side of recipient, and the recipient is going to generate e-way bill by himself. Basically, in compliance with Rule 138, whereby consignor is not generating e-way bill, but the consignee is generating e-way bill. There is no issue at all, but it is better to have a written documentation from the side of recipient that he himself is going to generate the e-way bill. Next question is this only. If the goods are non-taxable, then answer will change. See, in the case of non-taxable goods, even then e-way bill is required to be created. Answer is not good. Sale is intra-state in cost. Okay. Next question from Rahulji from Ajmer. The vehicle number was entered wrongly in the e-way bill, but in the shipment, in the payment slip, the correct number is mentioned. In such a situation, can the vehicle still be detained or will it be treated as a clerical error? So definitely the vehicle can be detained, but yes, you can always take this thing in front of the appellate authority. It was just out of clerical error, and even the payment slip, which is created by payment bridge government approved, government authorized uh, payment bridge, correct. Even the vehicle number was correctly mentioned in that, and hence there was no intention to evade the tax per se. You can definitely take the blame. Rahulji from Chennai, e-way bill generation, bill to ship to case example A, B. I think he needs an example. Let me create an example again. Suppose if A is a supplier. Suppose if A is a supplier who is supplying goods to B. B is the recipient, correct? Now, on the instructions of B, A has to deliver the goods directly to C, be it in same city or in different city or in different state. Again, there is no issue in that, because in such a case, the goods are moving from supplier A to ultimate receiver Mr. C, and hence it is a case of bill to ship to case, whereby Mr. B has instructed his supplier A to deliver the goods to his recipient Mr. C. In this case, only single e-way bill is to be created, ideally by Mr. A, whereby he will mention bill to, he will mention the details in bill to column of Mr. B, and ship to, under ship to column under table, he will mention the details of Mr. C. Correct? Only single e-way bill is to be created in this, because there is single movement of goods in this case. Mr. N.L. Suman from if the vehicle intercepting officer is not uploading the DRC-07 summary order, very good question. We have already discussed this. In the portal, how can the taxpayer file appeal against the section 129 order? Very important things. See, in this case, the best way is to first raise a grievance. I understand from my past experience that normally no proper result come out of such grievance. Again, you have to create another grievance mentioning the grievance number of previous grievance. After 3 days, 4 days, whenever the previous grievance gets closed. Again, you have to create another grievance mentioning grievance 1, grievance 2 number, that no DRC 07 summary order was being raised on the portal, and hence this is stopping me to file the appeal in this case against the order passed under section 129. So first of all, we have to create 3 grievances. Basically, we are creating evidence. And now you have to explain the whole case to the adjudicating or to the appellate authority, sorry, to the appellate authority. Before that, you can even do one thing. You can send a written letter to the adjudicating authority that no DRC 07 has been raised and uploaded on the portal. We are continuously raising the grievance also, but no proper resolution is coming out of such grievance. And hence, we are not able to file the appeal. You can even raise the proper documentation for the same. Correct. All these 4, you should even take a receiving from the adjudicating authority in such case. Correct. Now, all these 4 documents must also be shown to the appellate authority. Ideally, before filing the appeal, in case you are able to show to appellate authority before filing the appeal, it will be best. Otherwise, also, you have to file the appeal. You have to make payment of the pre-deposit amount through DRC 03, and then you have to submit the physical copies. You have to submit the physical copies along with these 3-4 evidences to the appellate authority, and he will admit the appeal even by offline route. Kamakshi Sharma ji from Rupnagar says, please share the slides on email IDs. Okay, I request the organizers to do the needful. Mr. Sandeep from Chennai, what are the methods to avoid penalty even after seizure? Methods to avoid penalty. See, basically, you want to move the grounds. See, the first step after even after passing of the adverse order is you have to recreate the whole case fact by fact. You have to mention all the facts in the appeal filed against the in front of appellate authority. Correct. And then you should refer some points likewise that it was just a clerical mistake. You can even refer the benefit of, you can even take the use of circular 64/38/2018, whereby in case of minor defects in e-way bill, there would be a penalty of rupees only 500 plus 500 equal to 1000 rupees, which is to be paid through DRC 07. You can even take the benefit of an important fact that there was no intention of evasion of tax. You can submit other relevant documents such as invoice, such as delivery challan, such as copies of this payment bridge slips, copies of consignment notes. You can even submit your bank statements whereby the recipient has made the payment through online mode, through banking channels. You can submit the details you have mentioned in the GSTR1 plus the calculation per se made in GSTR 3B for the purpose of payment of taxes after adjusting input tax credits. Correct. So all these documents along with some important pleas which we have already discussed must be submitted at the time of filing appeal. Utnaji from Chennai, ITC eligibility is questioned, stating that vehicles are not being passed through toll gate with the e-way bill data. How to handle this query? See now, again, very relevant and practical issue. See, what is happening is, in such a case, as far as I can remember, up to 16th of Jan 2021, I repeat, up to 16th of Jan 2021, there was no data available with the department which is synchronized with e-way bill, synchronized with toll gates. And hence, department can never identify or department can never say with surety that this vehicle was passed through toll gate or not. Why I'm referring you this date as 16 Jan 2021, very important. Why? Because see, before 16 Jan 2021, there was no concept of fastags. Fastags were not mandatory before that date, correct? and hence the data is not there with the department. But yes, after 16th Jan 2021, the case is slightly difficult. I'll refer further that in case your case belongs to a tax period after 16th Jan 2021, that is the date after which FASTag was mandatory, then in such a case, you should refer to a situation that the condition of passing through toll gate is not mentioned in GST law, and hence even if the even if the goods the conveyance has not moved through toll gate, it cannot be said that all the four important conditions mentioned under section 16 subsection 2 were not being fulfilled. The four conditions, the four important protective covenants mentioned under section 16 subsection 2 are: first, the recipient must be having invoice or the debit note for availing the ITC. Second important condition, the goods or services must be received. Third important condition, the tax payable, the section 41 must have been paid off, correct? Regardless of whether payment is made through uh, ITC or payment is made through cash. And fourth important condition, that the recipient has filed his return under section 39, meaning thereby he has availed the ITC. Plus one more point, he has availed the ITC or he has filed GSTR3B within prescribed time limit. Basically, I am even adding an important condition of section 16 subsection 4, because later on otherwise the department creates issue by virtue of non-filing GSTR3B within time is specified under section 16 subsection 4. So whenever you have fulfilled all these four conditions, then you can always state, you can always mention that the condition that the conveyance should have been passed through toll gates is not mentioned in GST law. Is not mentioned in GST law, correct? And hence, it cannot be a sole ground for refusing the ITC. One more important point in this question: you should submit as much documents as possible to handle the show cause or the appellate stages in this case. Like you should submit invoice, you should submit invoice or delivery challenge, as the case may be. You should even submit the e-way bills. You should submit the bank statements whereby the recipient has made payment through banks. You should submit copies of consignment notes. You should submit copies of payment slips. You should submit copies of this your stock registers in case of any. So all these documents will play additional role. Definitely, there are some positive judgments in some cases, but not in GST, but in previous tax regime, whereby even if the vehicle was not shown to be passed from toll gates, but still movement of goods cannot be questioned. Lalitji from Pune is asking, if I am a GTA, but wrongly goods are transported under another GTA number, e-way bill. The question is not very clear. If I am a GTA, but wrongly goods are transported under another GTA number, I think you want to mention goods are transported under another consignment number and another consignment, and through another consignment note number, e-way bill is being created. What are the consequences? So basically, the details of transporter are not correctly entered. Correct, right? See, if the goods are not intercepted in between, that there is no issue at all. This we are already aware of, correct? But in case the goods are intercepted in between, then again you should refer that such mistake is absolutely of clerical nature, and there was no intention to evade the tax. Makshi ji, but I do a query. Makshi ji, please share the slides on bill reason. Yes, I'll share the slides. Makshi ji, in case you are having any query, please write down the query here. Anil ji from Ahmedabad. Whether is it mandatory to have GST in the ship to address in bill as Government of Tamil Nadu moving squared insists on the same and levy 200% penalty if no GST number is mentioned in the shipment? No, not at all. There cannot be a ground whereby the GST number of the ultimate recipient, the details of whom are referred in ship 2 are to be filled. No, this cannot be the case. And in case, Government of Tamil Nadu, officers of Tamil Nadu are uh, raising this issue again and again, especially the rowing squad, then definitely you can raise a grievance out of the same. Suganya ji from Chennai, while raising e-way bill for job work, value of goods to be mentioned, correct. The value of goods to be mentioned in the e-way bill. Correct. Value of goods to be mentioned, not only the job work value. Full goods value, material along with job work value. Full goods value must be mentioned for creation of e-way bill. Yes, I understand, Suganya ji, that you are having a doubt that in this case, even the GST rate would be levied on whole value of goods. Whereas as a job worker, only the GST should have been levied on the job work amount. I am understanding your situation, but still, for the purpose of movement of goods, for the purpose of creating e-way bill, the whole value of goods should be considered and not only the value of job work. Urantla Harita ji from Hyderabad, is e-way bill compulsory for interstate movement of goods? Technically, yes. Technically, yes. And definitely, yes, for any kind of movement above 50,000 rupees of invoice value. Soumya ji, I am unable to log in. Achha, okay. See, Pratik Mittal ji from Ludhiana. In case of assessee vehicle, intercepts due to non-availability of invoice. Okay. Okay. So at the time of interception of the vehicle, the invoice was not there, right? See, suppose if it is a case whereby e it is a case of an assessee whereby e-invoice was made applicable. Now, if that is the case, then definitely you got a good chance. But in case where e-invoice is not applicable, what if government is of opinion, what if department officers are of opinion that this movement of goods was absolutely without invoice? I believe, and I'm quite unsure also that you are going to get in relief in this case, because this is purely a case of supply of goods without raising invoice. Prayum Gupta ji from Noida, goods dispatched for stock transfer from UP and supply in Haryana. Okay. In GST number of Delhi, is it possible, and which head selected in outward supply? You have to select under build ship to model. I think your question needs some more detailing. Probably you might be asking that in the case of build to ship to mode or in the case of build to ship to model, the details of the ultimate receiver are also being known to the original supplier. Correct. See, the details of C, Mr. C, are now known to Mr. A also. So this is an issue, I agree. What you can do that in such a case, you tell Mr. B only, your client only, to prepare e-way bill. Basically, creation of e-way bill by recipient himself. Not the ultimate recipient, but the intermediate. Correct. He will create e-way bill without mentioning the e-way bill number of supplier. Definitely, this is a problematic case. This is not a foolproof solution. Kapil Yadav ji from Gurugram, can you suggest any way out for imposing lesser penalty when there is no revenue loss or when there is only technical fault? So definitely, you have to fight for the same you should refer circular 64/38/2018. You can take the benefit of that. You should also refer to important case laws which we already discussed under Indus Towers, right? That there was no intention to evade tax. Moreover, in case the e-way bill got expired and the next morning only e-way bill, the goods were delivered, then again some benefit can be given. But in such cases whereby the invoice was not created only, then this is the very serious position, because there have been cases in past which suggest that uh, there was actually supply of goods without issuing invoice, and hence there is purely evasion of tax in this case. Anil Ji from Ahmedabad, in the case of build-to-ship model, whether the customer invoice is required to be carried by the transporter, not necessarily. When the e-way bill is prepared by the supplier, and the supplier e-way bill and the bill is carried by the transporter, okay, no issue. I believe even the invoice of supplier is created under bill-to-ship-to model, correct? And hence, the original invoice by the original supplier also mentions the details of ultimate receipt, and the bill is carried by the customer. Moving Square team insists for carrying such bill of customer to prove second leg transaction to avoid tax on account of evasion. Yes, they can always ask for that for uh, easier tracking, but this is not as per law. In case it is possible with you, then definitely this is advisable. Urantla Haritaji from Hyderabad, e-way bill raised against the tax invoice and goods delivered to the customer. Okay. However, due to some reason, goods were returned. Okay. Next is the supplier is again sending goods with same invoice, which was raised earlier. Whether new e-way bill needs to be generated? Definitely yes, sir. Definitely yes. Against the original invoice only, e-way bill is to be generated. Now, definitely, I'm understanding your issue that against same invoice, how can e-way bill be created again? I'm understanding your issue. The possible answer is, the possible solution set is, you should issue credit note for the original invoice and then raise a new invoice, and against this new invoice number, new e-way bill is to be created. This is one set of solution which is possible. Another set of solution, which is not very much advisable, but there have been cases in practical life whereby the supplier is not ready to raise credit note, because in all the cases of creation of credit notes, the law speaks that you are going to get the reduction in outward tax liability if and only if the recipient reverses his ITC. Now, you have got no control over the GST returns of receiver, and hence you can never be sure that the receiver has reversed the ITC person. Correct. So another method can be create new e-way bill with same invoice number and just create a dot at the end. As far as system is considered, this will be considered as a new invoice number. There is one more point. Please create a very strong documentation that the goods were returned by the recipient. Definitely there should have been delivery challan with that. Definitely there should be some uh, there should be an e-way bill for the return of goods also, correct? And there should be some documentation also, probably on his letterhead. Even that will suffice. Another thing, the e-way bill should have been created by the recipient at the time of sending back of goods under the name of purchase return. And hence now the original supplier is under an obligation to create a credit. Ideally, issuing credit note and then issuing new invoice, new e-way bill is best suited in this case. That is without any risk. Suvanya ji from Chennai. Instead of delivery challan, the vendor has wrongly attached the job work invoice and mentioned as output tax invoice in the case of e-way bill. Will it amount to clerical error and penalty may not be raised by the officer? This is very difficult to say as of now, because definitely the intercepting officer has got full right to create a case. You can definitely explain the whole scenario to the adjudicating authority, to the appellate authority. Probably he might understand and he might agree that there was no revenue loss, there was no intention to tax evasion. He might do something, but otherwise, the intercepting officer is not going to agree on this front. Mr. Rahul from Ajmer, sir, I am purchasing goods from a government department, but I want to send the goods directly to another party. Yes, you can do this. In this case, can I directly generate a e-way bill, generate an e-way bill to ship to model, correct? Or do I first need to generate an inward e-way bill in my name and then create a bill to ship to e-way bill? No, 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 not at all. There has to be only single e-way bill in this case. You have to directly create e-way bill by yourself under bill to ship to model only. Since there has been movement downwards only single time, hence only single e-way bill is to be created in this case. Ji from Noida, is it mandatory to mention all items in description in case of stock transfer? Ideally, definitely yes. But the e-way bill portal limits the number of characters. Right. In such a case, you can attach the detailed delivery challan containing all the items in the description in that delivery challan. At least it will exonerate you from the any possible liability. Ji from Chennai, in the bill to ship to transaction, the e-way bill was correctly generated. The e-way bill was correctly generated. Okay, fine. However, in the system generated invoice, all the details was correctly entered. System generated invoice, all the details were correctly entered. Okay. The bill to GSTN was wrongly updated. Not very clear. However, the system generated invoice, all the details were correctly entered. And the ship to field detail, the bill to GST number was wrongly updated as ship to. Achha. During the interception, the officer was asking that the goods were moved on the eastern place of the business. How to handle this issue? Additionally, under bill to ship to transaction, the e bill was correctly generated. However, while generating e-invoice, the ship to details are not entered. The same was not mandatory field by generating e-invoice. While interception, the officer asked there were no ship details in the e-invoice. Since it is a minor error, in booking section 120 subsection is valid. See, Gopinath ji, first of all, it is not a minor error because there are multiple errors. First of all, there is error in e-way bill. Then there is error in, you have mentioned wrong GST numbers also. And then again, even the e-invoice was not accurate. See, I think the intercepting officer is not going to help you positively in this case. Yes, you can definitely issue all the relevant documents, plus all the documents from the respective recipients, meaning thereby that they have placed an order. First of all, in their PO, you had given your quotations. The whole trail is to be created. Probably you can get the relief from appellate authority. Rahul ji from Chennai, query in e generation bill to case. Yes, we will discuss this. Rahul ji from Chennai, e generation. Yes, we have discussed. Okay, he is saying my question is not coming to you properly. It seems only first line is coming. Yes, sir. Only first line is coming. Muthukumar ji, audio is not, no audio is available. Voice is not clear. Am I audible? Hello? Okay. Ritesh ji from Chennai, why there is a need of e-way bill in case of B2C supply since there is no further pass on of IT? See, what if you just supply the goods, okay, under B2C supplies, and then later on does not make the payment of any taxes because there is no trail also. Then how government is going to get the details that you have made the supplies, correct? So for this reason, in my understanding, with utmost humbleness, there is requirement of e-way bill in case of B2C supplies. Dokhi Lakshmanaran ji from Berhampur. A was directed by B to supply or ship goods to C. In this case, whether B has to raise an invoice in the name of C and file GSTR1 as sales to B to C or raise a challan as issued. No, sir. A was directed by B to ship two goods to C, correct? So basically, A is going to create e-way bill, no issue. In case A is not creating e-way bill, then directly e-way bill can be created by B also. Again, no issue. But definitely, A has to raise an invoice in the name of B and B has to raise an invoice in the name of C. No doubt about this. The only point is that there would be single e-way bill, but two invoices, two proper invoices by both the suppliers. Sir NL Sumanji from Ernakulam, I raised 4 queries on subjective letters or purchase. Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you. Patel ji, whether e-way bill required to be generated when goods are transported from one unregistered person to another unregistered person? Definitely yes, sir. E-way bill is required to be generated even when goods are transported from one URP to another. Definitely yes. Nitesh ji from Germany, great session. Okay, thank you, sir. Covered almost every critical situation. If possible, please also elaborate about GTA. Most of the times I get confused between GTA and normal transporter. Also explain ITC rules regarding same. Okay, just 2 more queries and I will discuss something about GTA. Dharmesh Kumar ji from Ahmedabad, if goods sent to government on center approval basis and invoice not issued within 6 months, what to do? Sir, better is to issue the invoice as soon as possible. But in case the 6 months have also passed, and even the time limit to issue invoice up to next 30th November of next year, even if that time limit has passed, then such goods sent on approval will be deemed to be supply person. Rangarajan ji from Chennai, how to communicate different vehicle and e-way bill in case of change of vehicle happens in Swiggy mode of dispatch. Okay. So you have to continuously update part B in such a case whenever the conveyance vehicle is getting changed. Nitesh ji, coming again to your query. See, basically the major difference between GTA and transporter is that GTA issues consignment note. There is no definition prescribed for GTA in GST Act, GST rules, but it is prescribed in notification number 12 by 2017. Correct. So there itself you will find the definition of GTA. Correct. Now, what is consignment note? Consignment note is nowhere different. For the purpose of consignment note, you have to refer Service Tax Rule 4B of Finance Act 1994. Correct. Now, why I'm telling you this? Because in case of any transporter who is not issuing any consignment note, he cannot be regarded as a GT. Now, in case it is a case of only transporter, in case it is only a case of transporter, then neither he is required to get himself registered, nor the recipient of the transportation service is required to make payment of any RCM. I repeat, the condition of RCM is there only if the goods are transported through GTA. In case the goods are not transported through GTA or not transported through GTA, then there is no need of any RCM. See, I'll tell you one more thing. In the case of transportation of goods by road, there would be levy of GST if and only if the transportation is done by GTA or courier agency. In case of normal transporter who is not issuing any consignment note, any kind of consignment note by whatever name called, then there is no need of any GST because that is purely an exempt supply. There is no RCM element also applying on that. Correct. Any further issues? One more question from Rahul Ji from Chennai. Can A tell B to supply halfway to an unknown location midway, which is not registered as additional place of business, and then A will carry goods in this vehicle to C from that unknown or unregistered location? In this case, is there any non-compliance if ship to is unregistered location? Sir, it is not a non-compliance if ship to is unregistered location, but for the purpose of again creating EV bill from a place which is not added to your location, that is a big problem, because that place is neither address of supplier nor it is your address. Then how it can be a case whereby you can create EVP? Technically, you might uh, receive a query from department. In my opinion, you should avoid doing this. I think I have tried to cover all the queries. There were as much as 39 queries. Any other query which I have not answered? Yes, yes, I'll definitely share the PPT. I'll definitely share the PPT in 5 minutes only.
No, sir, I don't think any queries left.
Sorry, beg your pardon?
I don't think any queries left out.
Yeah, I don't think so. There are any queries left. So with this, I give a rest to my voice. Thank you for the patient hearing. And in case of any doubt for any of the listeners, they can always contact me on my number or even on my email ID. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for leaving no stone unturned in addressing our discerning queries with this with remarkable clarity and insight into the topic. Thank you. Yes.